China has protested U.S. new sanctions against Iran, which affected Chinese firms as well.
As for sanctions, we are always against any kind of unilateral sanctions. We think frequent implementation of such unilateral sanctions, especially when it impairs the benefits of a third party, is not helpful for all relevant sides to enhance mutual trust, and not helpful for all relevant sides to cooperate and make joint efforts in addressing international issues.
Liu said that Beijing has lodged a protest to Washington over the matter. Liu also stressed that China consistently opposed any unilateral sanctions. His comments come after the U.S. imposed new sanctions against Iran over its recent missile tests at the weekend. The sanctions targeted 3 Chinese, among others. Iran has repeatedly said that it will not be intimidated by threats and will continue to expand its military capabilities to defend itself against any foreign aggression. John Stepling, author and commentator, joins us from Norway. So we're taking a look at the stance from China, and also Russia has we should include Russia in that, both protesting against the U.S.'s approach, at least in terms of sanctions and the rhetoric. Does that change anything from the past? Because we're looking at almost a repeat scenario of how the relationship has been vis-a-vis Iran and, of course, the rest of the countries.
Right. No, it is a repeat of the past, and I think it's important to look at the Trump phenomenon with a historical point of view here, a long view. I mean, the Enzo Traverso, the Italian historian, said that the rise of fascism in Europe, in Germany in particular, was laid at the feet of the failure of liberalism, that liberals purged the left from their parties and made common cause with the right. The same thing has happened in the United States. I mean, the Democratic Party purged all left voices, communist voices, any sort of genuine radical voice from the party. And it turned further and further to the right. And Trump is sort of the logical outcome of this. U.S. foreign policy hasn't changed. I mean, I've said this before here, but I mean, since the Dulles brothers, the CIA, U.S. foreign policy has done the same thing. They have crushed socialist, communist countries. We see it in Yugoslavia. We saw it in Yugoslavia. We saw it in Nicaragua. And they have always looked to find markets, new markets for Western capital and to control resources globally. And that is what they are going to continue to do. You know, the U.S. aligns itself with Saudi Arabia, a murderous monarchy, and with Israel, an apartheid state guilty of innumerable war crimes. And so the protests against Trump now feel very strange because they are mostly against Trump, the person, the personality. And that's understandable. So, you know, he's a profoundly ignorant leader. I mean, recently he made comments about Frederick Douglass during Black History Month as if Douglass were still alive. And he's rather proud of never having read a book. So it's understandable that a lot of people find Trump offensive. His domestic policies are racist and bigoted, yes, but his foreign policy is turning out to be identical to Obama's. And the influence of Israel looms very large in this. And I think if Trump is listening to different voices whispering to him, he is certainly going to be listening to Netanyahu, I fear. So Nikki Haley had this anti-Russian rant at the UN the other day, but it sounded remarkably like Samantha Power. So yeah, it's the same foreign policy, and it's you know, perhaps less organized and coherent than it was under Obama, or at least the optics are, but this is, you know, Trump is a logical outcome of 50 years of, you know, movement to the right in U.S. politics. And, it's a little frightening. But it also, the big question is who exactly is calling the shots for Trump, because it's not Trump and it's probably not Bannon, who's just as ignorant as Trump. So who is it? And it probably is the neocons. It's probably the same people that advised Obama, and the CIA operates semi-autonomously anyway and always has. So I don't see any change in U.S. foreign policy. But the rhetoric is more inflamed right now. I don't know if that has any substance or not, but we shall see.
Okay, just quickly, if you can answer, you called Trump ignorant and you called Bannon ignorant. Who do you consider smart in his administration?
That's pretty difficult. Nobody yet. I mean, he just appointed Jerry Falwell's kid to some post with education. You know, it's the Trey Parker, I guess, of South Park said he's going to stop satirizing Donald Trump because you can't satirize him. He is, you know, the post-satire president. There's nobody on the face of it. Clearly, there are people behind the scenes that will rise to positions of influence, but we maybe don't know who those are yet. I certainly don't. I mean, James Mattis, Rex Tillerson, they're nominally rational voices, but just barely.
Right. Well, you let us know when you find that out. Thank you very much, John Stepling, author and commentator from Norway.
A Fox News alert and a bit of saber rattling by China. This just a couple of days after the U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis was in Tokyo saying that the U.S. would defend Japan's claim to what are called the Senkaku Islands. Well, just today, China sailed 3 of its warships past the Senkaku Islands. It claims them itself, as does the island of Taiwan. They are disputed. The United States believes that Japan has the legitimate claim. Now China has sailed its warships through Japanese waters, territorial waters, and past these Senkaku Islands. This again against the backdrop of Secretary James Mattis, who was in Tokyo a couple of days ago, saying that the U.S. would defend Japan's claims. We'll certainly keep an eye on this very interesting and developing story.